Summer is always my favorite season because that's when we'd go pick, shuck, and cook our family's corn stalks out at my grandma's house. There would be a certain weekend we'd all get together and we'd all do our part. Now, speaking of which, did you know that 92% of all corn grown in the U.S. is genetically modified? This means that unless you grow in your own corn, like my grandma, you're eating a genetically altered version of the original plant. The side effects of this are still unknown, but what risks do genetically modified foods pose to public health in U.S. agricultural systems? Now, I have 3 reasons. First one, foods may be toxic or unstable. My second reason, it can cause allergic reactions. And my third reason being long-term effects are unknown. Now, my first point. U.S. Right to Know, September 10th, 2025, states that Antonio explains that the health risks of genetically modified corn and its associated pesticides arise from 3 sources, one of which Bt insecticide proteins in the engineered plant. Now, Bt is a type of plant that produces its own insecticides. Now, if you're eating corn that has insecticides in it, that might be toxic and unsafe to eat. Now, U.S. Right to Know, September 10th, 2025. He concludes that regulatory systems remain stuck in outdated systems, ignoring both risks of stacking genetics and toxicity of pesticide mixtures on people who are regularly eating this corn. So, people who are regularly eating this corn, which some people like me love corn to eat it a lot, might be having some negative side effects, some toxic side effects. Now, my second reason is that it can cause allergic reactions. The week, April 11th, 2025. If a soybean is crossed with a nut, and people with allergies to that nut may react to the genetically altered soybean. Now, since quite often many foods that are grown and exported are genetically modified, we might have allergic reactions to those genetic modifications. And if we ate this normal food, it would not affect us. But then we have to be on the lookout for those foods. Now, Spartana, November 20th, 2024. Starling corn was genetically altered to be insect resistant. However, this change resulted in several reported cases of allergic reactions. So, if this corn was changed and nobody was having an allergic reaction to it before, and then after it was altered, people were having an allergic reaction, that must mean that genetic alteration has changed the people who were eating it. Now, on to my third reason. Long-term effects are unknown. Britannica, November 15th, 2024. The contention that genetic modifications pose no risk to humans can't be supported by studies that measure a time frame that is too short to determine the effects. Now, like we've said, if these time frames are short and not long enough to correctly determine effects, how will we know what this genetic modification is doing? If it could cause cancer or could cause rashes and more allergies, we won't know that until people who have already been eating it for a long time have been eating it and then those symptoms show up. Now, EFSA, November 22nd, 2024. Genetic modification applications must contain adequate information to enable the assessment of potential long-term adverse effects. Now, this means that they must contain studies and contain research on the genetic modification to make sure that they are not bringing in toxic things to our country. Now, on to review. My first point was that foods may be toxic or unstable. The thesis was, what risks do genetically modified foods pose to public health in U.S. agricultural systems? My first reason was foods may be toxic or unstable. My second reason would be that it could cause allergies. My third reason is that long-term effects are unknown. Now, next time you're eating your corn and eating your food or shopping, think of the genetic modifications that could be in that food that you're buying. And then rethink if you could get any other food that you would rather have, or if it's truly safer than just normal food.